Ah, there we are. Now we're on the air.
We're
All
live.
right, we are live. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first This Week in Cassandra. We're going to be talking about just basically stuff that's happening in the Cassandra ecosystem over the last week. We're going to be taking a look at blog posts, new projects. In the blog post itself that accompanies this video, you can see any new job postings, and we're going to take a look at some of the Jiras and merges that have happened in the open source code base of Cassandra itself. So this is in particular really exciting for us. This is what we love to do.
Oh yeah, we love to do this, don't we?
Yeah, I love me some open source.
You do. Spend plenty of time on it.
Yeah. So yeah, let's take a look at the news and the blog posts that have come out this week. The first one that we have.
First of
What's
all,
that?
you should let everyone know. First of all, this is our first shot, so let's make sure we make mistakes. It's because we're live, and this is
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
giving it a first shot at this. So
yeah.
we would appreciate feedback quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yep. And we've you can there's a Q&A tab if you're looking at the Hangout and you're watching it live. You can ask questions. Just be aware that there's a chance that we might not get to it in time, or it might show up a little late. The Hangout thing can be a little bit weird. So if we don't answer your questions in the Hangout, we can answer them on Twitter,
Right.
and that will, maybe other people have your answers and things like that. So we're pretty pumped about that. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Did I
No.
mention my sweet pink curtains with the weird lights in the background?
No, but I did, and look at my
Yeah.
sweet background. Mine's
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it says Planet Cassandra. Yours is just pink. That's kind of lame, actually, but actually totally you. And I did say I wanted you with a tutu on for this, but
Yeah,
next time?
next time.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's dig into the blog posts and the news
Dig 'em
and
in.
all the good stuff. So the first one that we have on our list here is the importance of single partition operations in Cassandra by our very own Jui Hai. He is excellent.
Machine.
Would you guys think of this blog post?
Well, that to me is one of those. This is a foundational blog post where if you're working with Cassandra, you should understand this in any kind of query. Your data model depends on the single partition, absolutely. So if you look at what he's talking about, it's really there's some really fundamental points in there. If you do data modeling, of course you need a partition key, but then this is more of a why, and then the downside of why you wouldn't. And actually, I saw some really cool stuff in there, like how he talks about secondary indexes, which I don't think a lot of people consider. When you're using a secondary index and a partition key, you do get some benefit from that.
I think it's like especially the opening part where he's talking about those loaded words, atomicity and isolation, and I won't try and get John started on the word atomic. But if you don't go and dig into our docs sometimes, especially if you're a newcomer to Cassandra, it might not be obvious to you the guarantees that you get when you're doing single partition operations. So, like for example, this came up when I was doing the Cassandra persistence plugin for Akka.net. The data model I ended up with, because I needed those guarantees, ended up trying to use single partition operations, and I even did a meetup talk on it because it was kind of an interesting thing that people sometimes miss, especially if you're a newcomer. So very good information for sure.
Yep. So what else we got here? We've got AesonX. Big news on AesonX coming out of Netflix. So basically the long-standing driver is being retired. I think it's about time.
Yeah, no, it's an old friend, but it's an old hero of the Republic, right?
Yeah.
AesonX was around. I think that was one of the first really big contributions from Netflix in the Cassandra open source, because it was a bit of a wild west with drivers, and this is 5 years ago, and it was their internal driver, which validated a lot. But it was a thrift driver, and of course that was the gist of the article, was that now that thrift is I guess it's deprecated now, and then it'll be finally phased out, frozen. there's no reason for them to continue spending time working on it when they're moving forward with a different plan.
Yep.
Give them some props too for some of the inspiration stuff that came later. Like in the DataStax official drivers. I think I remember hearing someone say token awareness. Was something that was something that came from that driver originally. So props to them for kind of laying the foundation.
Yep. It's interesting because Alon, who was one of the main drivers with AesonX, he and I were talking once, and he was the first one to turn me on to this idea of using a token-aware driver. And when he told it to me, it was one of those things where that's kind of obvious, I guess, now that I think about it. And yeah, it just kind of like shocked me for a minute. I had to stop eating my pizza. I think we were at a meetup. And that has been a cornerstone of the DataStax Java driver and Python driver and every other driver.
Yeah, eliminating extra network hops is, whenever you can take advantage of that, it's a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. So what else we got here? Multi-threaded program to count rows of your Cassandra table. I like a program. I love a good project that does one thing exactly. This is Brian Hess coming at you with counting, right? Counting. I don't think we need to talk much more about that.
Well, that is an interesting problem to me, right? So Brian and I were actually talking about this before he did this. He was getting ready to, the funny background on this is getting ready to take a cross-country flight, and he needed a project. And I was like, you know about that, John. And he's like, what is something stupid that is not easy to do? And counting how many rows.
Yep.
There's your single partition operation.
It's pretty funny. So I get to do a shameless plug of my own blog post. Working with Python and Cassandra and the object mapper right now. There's no asynchronous. Programming behind it. You can't, let's say, create multiple rows. Asynchronously. It has to be a synchronous process. I kind of just show how you can do all this stuff with gEvent. The underlying driver supports gEvent. So you still get all the advantages of like connection pooling and things like that, which is awesome. Except now you can do it asynchronously, and I've got some metrics that show you the performance gains when you actually factor in latency, and it can be huge. So
Luke, you can do your superior dance now. Have you ever used C# without asynchronicity?
Well, I mean, it used to be a real big pain in the butt until it was continuation style programming, like callback hell from JavaScript and other languages like that until they added async and await. So it's funny they're actually thinking about adding those keywords to JavaScript now too. But I didn't. Yeah, I guess not being a Python
JavaScript guy, just already async.
Just to make it kind of easier to reason about what's going on. You kind of write your code where it looks like it's synchronous, and you don't get into these really ridiculous indented callback blocks. But
it's nice not to have these nested insanity of okay, when this is done, then do this, and it's just lambdas all the way down, and eventually maybe you add a number somewhere. But
if I gotta say lambda when I'm writing code, I'm gonna stop.
It's not very fun. Or you write all these little functions up top, and then it gets really hairy. This is nice because with gEvent it just patches the standard library in Python and yields on any I/O call, right? So you can have these micro threads and basically be constantly doing stuff and actually using your CPU instead of just waiting around. So it's awesome.
I didn't know, not being a Python guy, I didn't really even realize what the state of kind of threading and that kind of stuff in Python even was, and async I/O and that kind of stuff. So to me, it was interesting just learning that.
Yeah.
It was the stupid Sun green libraries, the green thread libraries that I used to do in C++ that got me away from C++ back in because it twists your brain into a Rubik's cube. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Well, this stuff I think this is understandable. I think gEvent is a really good wrapper that abstracts away the insanity. Yeah.
Cool.
So there's a blog post about one of the features in Cassandra 3.0 the new token allocation algorithm, which I think is pretty cool. That's on the DataStax blog. What do you guys think of? You guys have looked at this this feature already. What's your take on this?
So, I mean, when I read it, I will admit to like not understanding all of the explanation of the algorithm involved. So, but I guess what I took away from it was it seemed like basically the idea was for people using vnodes, which is everybody, like on newer versions of Cassandra since when was that 2.0, where that was kind of made the default.
1.2.
1.2 is that when that was the default?
Yeah. It wasn't the default.
It was
2.0, but we had people using it. Actually, this is when it came about, when we realized how hard it was to use is in 1.2.
Yeah.
So I guess what I took away is that it's going to try and be smarter about how it distributes vnodes around the cluster and where what machines they're distributed to, and you even get some parameters to kind of play with to give it hints, to kind of be smarter, especially if you've got an unbalanced cluster, like where you've got more powerful machines, maybe you're phasing in some new, more powerful machines into an existing cluster kind of thing.
Yep. I'm really interested. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when this has been like I think day zero problem with vnodes that I'm just glad is finally solved, because that code was the original code was just a randomizer. I took a random token out of Murmur 3 and said, here, just use this, and that was the reason we had 256 tokens in there, is just to give it some n, to give it an even distribution.
Yep.
And it wasn't always even. I mean, it would swing like 7 to 14%, something like that. Not okay in a 4-node cluster.
Yep. So I think one of the things I'm interested to see is some testing regarding optimizing the number of tokens. Is 8 enough? Is it 16? Is it 64? I think.
Well, so interestingly enough, we didn't. This isn't in here. This was a previous blog post, but we just had that blog post about vnode and JBOD alignment, and I think that's great, because now we can start getting into more intelligent operations type decisions, where we say, oh, I'm going to create so many different JBOD disks, and then I'm going to match it up with the number of vnodes, and so you're making those kind of one-to-one decisions instead of just throwing out a number, which those are fun to do, but they don't make any sense.
Yeah, and this Jira that you're talking about, I think this is where it allocates vnodes to disks. And it prevents a whole bunch of failure scenarios. Like if you lose one disk, you don't necessarily affect every single range of tokens that a node is responsible for. It only affects some of them. So you can just replace one disk, and it's a less chaotic operation. Hopefully, it also
RAID for your entire data center. Yeah.
And hopefully, it also improves node density, right? Like if you're not compacting as many nodes with each other, like there should be better.
Well, I think it would get you away from. We are tangenting, but it's a good point. It gets people away from having to do craziness like RAID 1, RAID 0. Which one am I going to do? Because I got to do something with my disk, and I'm not really sure what the allocation is going to be like. And if I use JBOD, is it going to be right? I mean, there's a lot of questions that come up in operations. That's what I like about this, is that it doesn't make you make unnatural decisions and use RAID when you really don't need to.
Definitely. The last thing that we've got in here is logging the generated CQL from the Spark connector. I'm actually really happy to see this, because I was just talking about this with somebody. So basically, the big problem, if you're not familiar with the Spark connector, you can be executing these big batch jobs against Cassandra, and you may have no idea what CQL is being thrown against Cassandra from Spark, because especially if you're using data frames, it's doing a lot of the work for you. So this is a post from Ryan Sfila talking about the different ways of seeing the generated CQL, and I think this is really helpful. Like if you're using Spark in the Cassandra connector, like to me this is like you should absolutely read this post. That's just my point of view. Read it right now.
I was reading this post, I'm having a little PTSD flashbacks of using Hibernate. I'm sorry.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Actually, I was thinking of generated queries from there.
It's like, oh god.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm all right now. I mean, I get it, but yeah, but I guess that goes to the same problem. It is when you have algorithms developing some query, it's like trusting a pit bull. Good dog, good dog. Ah, I bit my arm off. So it could happen, right? I mean, you could get a really whack query going, and it's because it's non-deterministic. You get a good chance, but as a practitioner, you need to have visibility.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
And good to have Stila back at DataStax, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just throw that out there.
Stila's DataStax.
Ryan is the man, and he's blogging.
So we've got an event coming up. I think we should take a sec to talk about Cassandra Day LA on February 17th. If you're in the LA area, you definitely are going to want to check this out, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with Cassandra. This is a lot of.
And it's my birthday too, so yeah, of course, come on out. We're having a huge celebration.
Yeah, it's going to be downtown LA. Where is it, Patrick?
The Westin Bonaventure, and literally in downtown. It's in the center.
Yep.
You might recognize some of the scenes from the Terminator or Heat.
And True Lies as well. The elevators.
True Lies. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, Arnold on the horse on the elevator. Good times.
We're gonna have a Cassandra Day there. It's almost not worthy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say more close to the calendar. Next week, I'll be in Germany for Cassandra Day Munich and Cassandra Day Berlin. That's on a Tuesday and Thursday next week. If you are in Germany, sign up now. Come see me.
Mm-hmm. Do it.
Do it now.
I endorse this.
Endorse this. I have a pink curtain and I endorse this message.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some Jira updates. Right, this is where I get to play around with code that's not even released yet, and they're still changing. I love this stuff. So the first one I want to mention, this is an improvement. So it sounds like a small improvement, but it can be a really big deal. Just improving the Spark Cassandra connector to support reading from materialized views that just didn't work apparently with 3.0. So if you're into building off trunk, guess what? You can now leverage your materialized views to get some faster Spark queries, and I think that's just awesome. That's just great.
Well, now with 10% more awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just crank up the awesome.
Yeah, you know what we added? Awesome.
We also have, I think this is a huge development. We can talk a little bit about this in detail, I think. New secondary indexes in Cassandra are already merged into trunk, and there's a Jira 11,067 improvements to it, adding a like clause.
By the way, I should just pause. You do not have to memorize that number. This is in a blog post on Planet Cassandra. You can click a link. You do not have to memorize this number.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't need to be memorizing every single Jira. I think it's fun. This is huge. So we'll probably spend some time blogging about the actual implementation details. But the gist of this is that you can do prefix. Like wildcard searching, suffix searching. There's some awesome stuff that's coming into this, and it's fast. This is fast. This has been in production in a very large cluster for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
Good times. So it's pretty exciting, and this stuff's being merged in, and it'll show up in 3.4, which is going to be out in like a month and a half or so.
Soon. Yeah. 3.3 is coming, and then 3.4. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I'll let Luke comment on this. You're just like excited, but.
Yeah. I mean, I just second what everybody's saying. I mean, it's super exciting. Like being able to do a like, it's like bringing us closer and closer to that SQL kind of parity. Not that should be our goal, because we're not a relational database, but pretty cool to be able to do those kinds of queries that you're used to doing in relational databases.
That's just it, right? I mean, well, so I think this has always been an issue with data model and Cassandra, as people tend to use secondary indexes a little more liberally than they should, thinking that, well, this is the right choice if I'm going to try to bend my data model to my will. But if you use them in an incorrect way, then they can turn into a real downside. And it's almost an anti-pattern. I know I've had some people say, why do you just say no to every time? But because you can run into big trouble, and it's not the best way to get performance, for sure. I think I say this a lot. They're great for convenience, but not for performance.
Yep. But here, there's a lot of really good performance stuff in it, too. I mean, I don't want to look too deep into the internals, like I said, because it's pretty hairy, but there's some really, really clever things being done in here that enable really, really good performance. You still have the problem of trying to do secondary indexes across, distributed cluster, like a distributed database. So, you could hit every machine, but it's the impact of doing them on each machine is going to be so much less that it's absurd. And the implementation, I keep reading about it, I keep looking through the code, and honestly, it just gets more and more impressive. Everything I learn about it, it looks better and better.
Everyone that I know that has tried it has been absurdly excited to the point where I had to sedate them.
Yeah, I'm really pumped to try this stuff out with Spark. So next week I'm going to be playing with Spark and this, and seeing how much of a performance impact we can have from having secondary indexes that are trivial. Like they add. It doesn't take any longer to do a write, so you get the same write performance, and you're going to get just better read performance and flexible querying that you just could not do before. So
we keep mentioning the like clause, but I thought the rest of the SASE stuff had some other stuff even. Like I assume that got merged in too. So it was like grouping, predicates or
grouping is a separate one. But that is being worked on. But there's arbitrary numbers of predicates that get built into like an actual like tree of and ors with like a real query planner that can combine operations to make for more efficient lookups. That stuff is all like slated to come out. I think it's just being done in stages right now. Right. And I actually prefer that. I'd rather see like little things be done at a time as opposed to like these huge giant patches which land and everybody's like rebasing for weeks.
Well, that was the dream of TikTok, right? Is how we do TikTok releases is the even ones are feature releases, but we do them enough that now we can have. So Pavel's been working on enough to get into 3.4 where it's functional, people can start using it. I saw Jiras talking about there's a company out there, a user ready to put it into production. God bless them for that, but don't everyone do that. Great idea.
I will.
One person. Yeah, I know you will. But that's great because then we can get this incremental stuff going and say, oh well, there's some changes we need to make, and we can change it in the next couple of months and not wait until next year or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm loving the stuff that's coming out in TikTok. I wrote a blog post about what happened in 3.2. I'll be doing the same thing for every single release, just covering what's happening. And the SASE stuff that's coming out in 3.4, and I suspect every feature release is going to be just amazing. So
there will be a meetup coming in April, and so we're working on the location. But just heads up, Pavel, the author of this feature, but the main author on the feature, if you look at the Jira, he will be doing this meetup.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah. So I think that covers all that we had in here for Jiras that we wanted to talk about and projects and things like that. Do we have any Q&A?
Yes. One. Russell.
All right. Why isn't anyone combing anybody's hair? Great question.
I believe that's a physics question because
John and I are not the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Miles apart. Yeah.
Hundreds of miles apart.
Yeah. Thank you, Russ. And there's apparently a +2 on that, so people are really want to know.
Yeah. Maybe
Thanks,
it's because your hair is really unkempt. So just throwing that out there, maybe.
Maybe.
No one brushes my hair. Just saying.
So, all right, let's wrap this up. I guess. Last thing I wanted to mention. So, definitely hit us up on Twitter. I'm Rusty Razorblade. We got Patrick McFadden, Luke Tillman. Seriously, if you have any questions, just tweet at us. We're going to be doing this
every week. We would love feedback. Yeah, if this is awesome, if this is horrible, please let us know. If it's really, really horrible, tell somebody else.
We don't want to know.
We don't really want to know.
Luke will cry if
it's sad because I'll have to fly to Denver and console him. And it will be bad because it's
been cold, so frozen tears.
Yeah, frozen tears. It's sad when they're frozen. But so what we want every week, John, is we would like to. We're going to do this blog post every week, This Week in Cassandra, just to get you caught up, so you don't have to try to track it all the time like we do. We're kind of maniacs for this, but what we want to see is some projects, blogs, things that are interesting that are happening in the community. Do this weekly. If you have a job posting you really want, and we've already got a couple for next week already, go ahead and send those our way. Just at Planet Cassandra on Twitter, and if it's more than what you can do in a tweet, then add us there. Hit us up on Twitter, and we can get into an email exchange. But we want to know about stuff that's happening so that we can convey this back out to the Cassandra community. We have a large community worldwide that I think is growing every single day, and this kind of information is really critical because it's just turning into a large amount of noise, and you don't want to lose things.
Yep. And having a place where you can just go and check out a quick little post, get your dose for the week of what's going on. Especially it's Friday. Whatever.
Yeah, we posted on Friday. What are you gonna do?
Let's just hang out, eat a sandwich, read a blog post.
We'll do something. Oh, let's read a blog post. Let's read it to each other. Let's do that right after this, okay?
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else? I can't think of anything. I'm done.
No. I'm going to go read a blog post.
All right. Let's shut this thing down. How do we do that?
I think Lena has the big button.